all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Anyone here for the first time? I saw your hand first. What brings you here?
Just learn more.
Learn more about?
Buddhism and practice here.
Right on. Well, welcome. Yes, sir.
Want to learn more about Buddhism and meditation to get rid of my anxieties.
Learn more about Buddhism and meditation to take care of your anxieties. Well, welcome. Yes.
These friends brought me here.
I know these two.
But I want to learn more about meditation.
Yes. I'll try not to hold that against you, don't worry.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, it's the common answer that, I mean, we just heard it 3 times, so learn more about Buddhism and learn more about meditation. Has anyone ever told, especially the 3 of you who said that, has anyone ever told you to be nice to people? Has anyone ever told you to be nice to yourself? Has anyone ever told you to do things that help others? Has anyone ever told you to do things that don't harm others? You are now free to go. That's it. I mean, that is in the simplest form. The Buddha spent 45 years teaching. And I think that in my, lens of practice, as much as I can handle this go around, that sums it up. Right? And these are all things that most of us have learned since we were kids. We've just, myself included, failed to do them over a long period of time. And that leads to the anxiety, it leads to the suffering, it leads to the dukkha. It leads to challenges in our lives. And what I was going to talk about today, which I'll just touch on briefly since you brought it up so consistently there, is one of the practices called right action. And just to keep in mind, to kind of plant a seed a little bit for those who are here just for the meditation aspect of it, is that we can meditate all day long. I mean, you could spend the next 10 years in meditation. But if after 10 years and one day you step outside and all of a sudden people cross your path and you start yelling at them, or they don't do what you want and you get angry, or they disagree with you and you start fighting with them, then the meditation practice maybe didn't do so much good. So we look at right action, it's beyond just the meditative practices. It's beginning to understand that the things that lead us to a meditation practice, right? The stress, anger, anxiety, sadness, depression, things like that that we feel, this discomfort, is caused and triggered by our actions out there. So as you begin to integrate a meditation practice into your life, which is very important, also look at the actions Are they wholesome or unwholesome? And are they there to benefit self or benefit others? And be aware of the actions that we take. So, again, I'll probably touch on that more later. But we'll start with a little meditation practice. A couple things to tell you. For those who may be here for the first time or doing meditation for the first time, nothing's going to happen to you. All right? You're not going to float away, most likely. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Okay, don't judge this practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is it not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? When am I going to float? None of those things are going to happen. You're going to sit, you're going to breathe, you're going to hear sounds. People will cough, right? Somebody might fall asleep and start snoring. Whatever it might be. This is life. Life is filled with things that happen around us. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. So please keep breathing. If you stop breathing, it's going to be very difficult for the rest of us in this room. So do your best to keep breathing. I will guide us as we begin. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. Shoulders can be on the knees or in the lap. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means your leg hurts. If you're on the chairs or benches, also just trying to sit up straight. Hands are on the knees, lap, shoulders relaxed. Again, I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply going to continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. the body still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. Most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the Buddhist statue or incense or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being no different than anyone in this room who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where we come from, or what we believe in, or where we think we're going, our whole life is filled with things that happen. We react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our days. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This is not an easy practice necessarily. It is not necessarily fun. Sitting quietly for 5, 10, or 20 minutes leaves you with the one thing that most people are trying to run away from, which is your own mind. But as you just found out, whatever craziness you had in your head this morning, you brought all of that here with you. Thank you very much. This practice is free. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, and as I alluded to earlier, learning to be kind to yourself and every other person you encounter every moment of your life. That's why it's simple. You just have to go be nice to people. You know, I mentioned earlier, especially with the 3 comments and all of them being so similar about learning about Buddhism and meditation. And I mentioned right action. And it's really important that for me as a practitioner, we understand that it doesn't matter how much you meditate, how long you meditate, how much you read, how often you read, right? If we can't put what we're practicing and learning into our everyday life, then this thing that we create, this community, this sangha, right, which they're all over the world, they end up being escapes. And if we're not careful, then we end up using this practice in a place like this, or any place like this, as something to escape to run away from the problems that are in our lives. And most people have had enough escapes their whole life. Right? We all turn to different things to escape from the present moment. Some of them healthy, some of them unhealthy. We'd be here all day if I asked everybody to rattle off all the things we escape to. Right? This is just the way we tend to do things. We find something to go to because we're not comfortable with what is. And so that's where this practice is really taking kind of an honest, genuine, authentic look at what is it and why is it that I'm running away from anything to begin with. Now, as I always say, this is a healthier escape. Meditation, learning about Buddhist practice, it's a healthier escape than most of the things we've often used to escape to. So don't get me wrong, if this is the one thing that's keeping you, safe, clean, sober, steady, stable, whatever that word might be, then please keep escaping to it. But eventually realize that we want to get to a place with the cultivation of practice that we don't feel as if we have to escape from anything. That we're just pleasant and okay with where we are. And that's where the practice of right action really comes into play. And to touch on it briefly, just to kind of put it into some context for those who might be brand new or not aware, this really stems from the first teaching the Buddha gave, which is the Four Noble Truths. The first thing he said is life is suffering. Doesn't mean all of life sucks, it just means you're going to have a lot of discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction in your life. Most people at this stage of our lives, we've figured that out. If you're here Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, you've definitely figured that out, right? Even with temperature, San Diego, we're freezing. It gets like 50 degrees and we're like, we're miserable, right? This is dukkha. This is suffering. This is discomfort. This is angst, right? Try going to, Michigan right now. You'd be very quickly missing San Diego. So our entire lives, we are very quickly comparing one thing to another. And this is what causes our suffering, right? Second thing is, what's the cause? The cause is greed, anger, ignorance. I want more, I'm angry at how it is, and I'm ignorant thinking that my way is correct. Third noble truth is the ending of suffering, liberation, nirvana, freedom from suffering, having a happy day, whatever you want to call it. And the fourth one is the path. And this is the eightfold path. And this is having correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. All of those on Google for free. And I just want to put it into some context to touch on right action. So you have your views, then you have your thoughts, then you have your speech, then you have your action. Action, the word karma literally means action. Karma is not what goes around, comes around. Karma is not getting what you deserve. That's a very selfish view of karma. Karma is recognizing, what do we put into the world? What do we give to the world? What do we give to those around us? What do we give to strangers? With our body, speech, and mind. What do we think? What do we say? And what do we do? So when we look at right action with our thoughts, our words, and what we physically do in the world, what's the intention behind it? And I found this as a practice to be the best way to look at what right action is. Before there's any action whatsoever, we have some sort of intention behind it. Now often, you ever done something where you say, I wasn't even thinking, right? It happened so fast I wasn't thinking. Well, of course you were thinking. If you weren't thinking, it wouldn't have happened. You just maybe didn't think long enough. Or you thought very quickly and recognized this is stupid, but I'm still going to do it. Right? Or you recognize this is something I shouldn't do, and maybe you stop yourself. But the thoughts are there. They just happen very quickly. So if we can stop before many of our actions and look at what is the intention behind this. Is it wholesome? Is it unwholesome? Is it neutral? Is it coming from a place of greed, anger, ignorance? Or is it coming from a place of generosity, compassion, and wisdom? Right? Are we doing what we're doing, thinking, speaking, and moving throughout the world just to benefit ourselves? Or are we actually taking into consideration that there's a whole bunch of people around you that you can impact? So I've found for most, especially as lay practitioners and the way we live our lives, monastics as well, but knowing that for most people, Buddhism meditation practice is something that even if you have a daily meditation practice, it's kind of a thing people do once or twice a week, right? And then they try to integrate it into the rest of their lives. And until it becomes really an awareness of every part of your life, it helps to figure out, how can I use this practice in everyday life? And one way is just to stop before you do many things and ask yourself, what is the intention? Why am I doing this? And very quickly, you'll get that feeling of, yeah, this is wholesome, this is for the benefit of people around me, myself as well, but not in a greedy way. Or is it unwholesome? Is what we're doing about to generate some sort of feelings of greed, anger, ignorance? Is it going to bring harm to others? Right? Is it selfish? And that doesn't mean you shouldn't take care of yourself, clearly. Right? As a great Zen master Dogen would say, you must first get to know the self before you can get rid of the self. So often when you read Buddhist books and it talks about no self or moving beyond the ego and things like that, I don't know about you, but I'm a long ways away from that. So I'm trying to figure out, what is this self, what is this ego, what is this pride that I've spent creating and cultivating my whole life, and how do I cut through that? But you must pay attention to your own actions and just see how you do. Not to feel bad, not to feel guilty, not to critique or judge yourself, not to think you're a terrible person just because you do mean things. Anyone in here, show of hands, done mean things to people? Right? Anyone here, by show of hands, done nice things to people? There you go. Every one of us is in the same boat. Right? So when we leave here today in a little bit, walk outside and go to the rest of your day and look at, what are your actions? Are they mean or are they nice? And if we can start there, everything you read or learn about Buddhism after that is like a bonus. But the practice I just gave you, that's the hard part. You could read 17 Buddhist books, but to go outside and be nice to people is going to be more challenging. So just read 7 books and then go out and be nice to people. And I just saved you like 10 books worth of money. It's probably like $200 or something. So I'll stop there. Just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. I know we have a couple students here, college students as well. So if you have questions you want me to address, don't be shy, now that I put you on the spot. So questions? Yes?
Should you do meditation every day or?
Should you do meditation every day? Do you brush your teeth every day? Yes.
Otherwise she gets it.
Otherwise she's mad at you, right? Yes, good answer. Do you, and you still have some up there, you comb your hair every day? Yeah? You put your clothes on every day, thankfully? Yes? So we do all of these things every day. Why would we not take care of the most important thing every day? Mental, emotional health. I mean, you said it, you're here to deal with anxiety. So is probably half the other people in the room. The other half are here to deal with sadness or depression or anger, right? None of us are here because we're peaceful and happy all the time. So absolutely, meditation, mental, emotional health, and well-being is the most important thing in your life. It is the foundation of everything you do, right? We're so worried about our teeth, making sure they're clean and our breath smells good, right? But if our mind is a mess, that's a bigger problem, right? So absolutely every day. But to add to that, make it realistic, right? If meditation is new, is this new to you, meditation? Right, so this is your first time ever doing a meditation? Kind of, yes. How'd you feel after the practice? After the meditation today?
Maybe slightly calmer, but not much.
Slightly calmer, but not much. Perfect. Okay? Now, next time you sit down to do a meditation, sit down as if it's the first time you ever did meditation. Don't compare it. Don't judge it. Don't critique it. Right? Just observe it. Sometimes it'll be wonderful. Sometimes it's going to suck. Right? It just depends. But most important is to do it every day. 5 minutes. If I told you to sit down every day for 20, 30, 40 minutes, what's the likelihood of that happening? Not so much. 5 minutes. If you can't do 5 minutes, do 3 minutes. If you can't do 3 minutes, do 3 breaths. If he can't do 5 minutes, force him. Right? So, but you get my point. Keep it simple. Often people think that meditation is about how long you sit or that time is important. It's you don't brush your teeth for 5 minutes and then the next day say, I'm going to do it for 7 today. Daily maintenance. Does that help?
Thank you.
Yeah.
The metaphor that I've been using for sitting, lately that works well is meditation is to mindfulness, like daily mindfulness out
Yeah.
in the world, as warming up is to running a marathon.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
less potential for harm if we
Absolutely. If you take care of our mind every day, it is definitely less potential. There's less potential of us causing harm to self and others. If we've never run a marathon and we go out this afternoon and try to run one, it's probably going to be a lot of harm, right? So it's a great way to look at it. It really is preparation for the rest of your day. Definitely. Questions? Yes, Marion.
The first step is that you take refuge to Dharma.
Yes.
Buddha, Dharma, and Dharma. What do you want talking about?
Yes. So at the beginning, when I ask everyone to join palms and we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, it's what's called the triple gem in Buddhism, right? The 3 jewels. And the first thing is to understand, when you hear the word refuge, what does refuge mean to you, Marion?
Means to take help or guidance.
Help or guidance, right? Refuge, help, guidance, could be safety, could be protection, right? Refuge means something different to other people, to each person. So first understand what refuge means to you. And then the second thing is, okay, I'm going to take refuge. The first one is the Buddha, right? And so for me as a formal practitioner, which I don't ask others to do, if I did, none of you would be here, right? I bow to the Buddha as my personal practice, to humble myself, right? To see what it's like to kind of lower my head, to recognize that I am not the most important person in the world. I know nobody here thinks you're the most important person in the world, but there's a time in my life where I thought I was the most important person in the world. So the bowing aspect for me is a very humbling, very traditional Buddhist practice, but I don't ask others to do it. It's just something I do. And then we're taking refuge in the Buddha. From the outside, it might look as if we are bowing down to the Buddha and praising or worshiping him, right? So this is a metal statue. The Buddha died 2,500 years ago. He can't help me, right? I'm on my own. So praising him and worshiping him is not going to do me any good, right? What it's doing is it's recognizing what's called bodhicitta, or Buddha nature. And the practice is to understand that the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, was just a human, right? He was a prince, he had all the wealth and riches, and then he left all of that to live a simple, humble life. And he woke up every day, he ate every day, he went to the bathroom every day, he slept every day, and then he died. We wake up every day, we, most likely, everyone in this room eats every day, right? We go to the bathroom every day, probably. We sleep a little bit, and then we die. We get all of that. So if this guy, Siddhartha Gautama, could do all of those things no different than we do and figure out how to end his suffering, then that's motivating and inspiring to know that we also can figure out how to end our suffering. And that nobody else controls our happiness. Our happiness comes from our heart and our mind. Our suffering comes from our hearts and our minds. And clearly lots of people in this room have gone through tremendous trauma and things of that nature. And it is still our reaction to these situations, no matter how tragic or how difficult they may be, that we can be okay with our heart and our mind. So taking refuge in the Buddha, that's what that means. Not him, but the idea of awakening. Right? That makes sense? The second one is the Dharma. The Dharma is the teachings. It's what he taught. Right? And he taught for 45 years the practice of loving kindness and compassion and joy and equanimity. Right? The practice of patience and morality and diligence, things like this. All these words that we've probably all heard. Be nice to people. He taught that for 45 years. So that's the Dharma, that if we practice these things, then maybe our life will be a little more calm, a little more peaceful. Right? And Dharma also means ultimate truth. Now, it's not truth spoken by the Buddha because he was just a human. He wasn't a god. He made it very clear, don't believe this just because I'm saying it. Right? He said, try it. And if it works for you, continue. If it doesn't, abandon it. But ultimate truth, to me, what I get from that teaching is that I see the world through one lens and one lens only. And that's my own. Right? We all walk around and we perceive the entire world around us from our own internal interaction with it. And ultimate truth is different from our perception of reality. Does that make sense? Every single person in this room sees the world completely differently. And every person you encounter your entire life will see the world differently. So ultimate truth is to understand that in a relationship we argue, it's because two people have different views, right? That's just life. Every conflict comes from different views. And I find safety, comfort, protection in knowing that if I kind of open my heart and open my mind to the crazy realization that maybe my view isn't correct, then maybe the world can change a little bit. And the last one is the Sangha. We take refuge in the community. The community of people that we practice with, right? That we spend time around, that motivate us, encourage us, inspire us. You know, if I was on my own right now and wasn't around a community every day, I'd be a mess. So, to me, being around a community is important, and that brings safety, comfort, protection. So that's the triple gem, the three jewels, they call them in Buddhism. Does that help?
Interesting. Thank you.
Yes. Other questions?
I would have one more question.
Go for it. You could have 10 more questions. I'm good.
Thank you. Thanks for bearing everyone. Okay, so what is the purpose of this bell? Because that really created a sensation in me.
Yeah.
Something interesting in me. I just want to know, is there any historical significance of bringing it?
We bought it purposely for the day that Miriam would show up and have a positive reaction to the bell.
All right, thank you.
12 years ago, we were like, this is the bell we need, and one day Miriam's going to come in here and she's going to love this bell. So
I appreciate
now
it.
we
I
can,
didn't have to pay anything for that.
nothing, totally free. Actually, the funny thing is, this specific bell is actually Howard's. He was a friend of ours in the community years ago, and he's active military, and so he's been on deployment for quite a while, and before he left, he gave us a few things, and this was one of them. So it's actually his bell. But to your question, the purpose of the bell, it comes up every once in a while, and you know, very traditional Buddhism, and I come from a Taiwanese Buddhist practice, really a Chan or a Zen practice mixed with Pure Land. The bells are used for formal rituals. They're used to, again, a very traditional answer would be to call all bodhisattvas, all Dharma protectors to the space to keep everything safe and kind of peaceful. I don't know that there really is some depth to the meaning of the sound of the bell, other than I think this sounds better than me saying, okay, stop meditation. I never was taught or seen or read, there's not like a Buddhist sutra running around where the Buddha said, at the end of meditation, hit a bell. I don't know. I just think they're fun and cool. A lot of people we have singing bowls downstairs. A lot of people use them, like people do chakra work and sound therapy, sound healing. We see a lot of people who do use them for that type of stuff. It's never been my practice. I just use it to start and stop meditation.
So when I had that feeling, I was associating it with the word awakening.
Yeah.
It kind of felt, and I thought, that seems interesting, so I need to ask if there's any historical significance.
Yeah, and I think even if there was historical significance, which I know none about, and I've been asked that a lot, and I've clearly never researched the historical significance, or I would have an answer for you. I think most important is what it did for you. And I think that that's true for all the Buddhist practice, that regardless of even the joining palms or, saying, taking refuge or bowing or anything like that, it means something to me, and that's why I do it. But everything we learn throughout Buddhism, if it doesn't mean anything to you, then it doesn't mean anything. So I think more important than any historical significance is what it does for you. That's, to me, really important. Yeah, the bell. Other questions? Yes?
Talk about what we think, what we say, and what we do.
Mm.
And I understand how I have control over what I say and what I do, but I don't seem to have any control over what I think. I mean, my mind is like...
Really? No one else is here has a problem with that. Right? No one's mind races, does it? Really? You weren't sitting here for 20 minutes just fully focused on every sensation of breath? What have you been doing the last 5 years coming to meditation? Don't answer that. But, our minds are a mess. So I get the question of, okay, I can control what I say, and that's an easy one because what's the best way to control everything you say? Don't say anything. Right? If our mouth is closed, we're not saying anything that's harmful, but we're also not saying anything that's helpful. So the solution is not just stop talking. Right? And you get into mindful speech and things like that. That reminded me, I'll talk about it after, reminded me, Miriam, about the way Deer Park Monastery, Thich Nhat Hanh uses the mindfulness bell, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So speech is important, right? So it's not about just being silent, it's how we use speech, honest, things like that. And then yes, we can control our physical actions, right? Maybe I shouldn't, hit this person, or maybe I shouldn't drive through this red light because I could cause an accident. But then the question is, what about this crazy mind that just won't shut off? This isn't going to sound encouraging, so I warn you first, okay? I started doing this practice probably, 23, 24 years ago was the first time I ever did meditation. I've been doing it every day for 16 years, and my mind is still an absolute, complete, racing mess. How do you feel about that? So I hope you're better at this practice than I am. I think what's important is to understand that, I don't know if you've seen me give this metaphor example, but so this is what I'm working on during meditation. Breath in, breath out. Follow whether you feel it, whether you hear it, whatever the sensation of breath is. Breath in, breath out. Focus on breath. Breath in, breath out. Focus on breath. Thought arises. Say it's hunger. I'm hungry. Recognize that thought. Release that thought. Then, not by focusing on it, but by then driving attention back to sensation of breath. Breath in, breath out. There's that thought of hunger again. Release it. Come back to the breath. This is what I'm working on. Constant recognition of every thought that arises, letting it pass by bringing attention and awareness and focus back to sensation of breath. What I don't want to do, thought arises. Hunger. I'm hungry. What do I want to eat? I want a burrito. I'm going to go to Pokies. I want cheese, I want chips, I want sauce. Next thing you know, from one single thought of hunger, I sat there for 5 minutes thinking about the burrito I want to eat. And I'm probably more hungry now than I was 5 minutes ago. So, why is this important? During your life, every day, thoughts arise. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant, and some of them are neutral. When an unpleasant thought arises, how long do you stay with that thought and turn it into a whole long story about how miserable everything has been for the last X amount of years, or, right? One single thought could ruin the next 3 years of our lives. If we keep telling it to ourselves over and over. There are people in this room, we've been carrying pain with us for 50 years. Some of us been carrying it for 5 years. And those are just the constant recognition of those thoughts and telling ourselves story after story after story from a single thought about something that happened a long time ago. I don't have any quick, answer as to how we're supposed to stop the racing mind. But with practice, the racing mind goes away from staying present. With practice. And what you begin to recognize, and also you may have heard the story, but his name was Cole, a college student years ago at San Diego State. He was an intern, and we'd been doing meditation there about 4 or 5 weeks, or however many weeks. He came in on a Monday, and he said, Jeff, I think I figured out why this meditation or how it can help me. I said, how's that? He said, well, I was at a party Friday night, and this guy was talking to my girlfriend, and I got really angry, and I realized I was probably going to get into a fight. And I should probably take some deep breaths and walk away. I said, that's great, what happened? He said, I hit him. I said, congratulations, that's progress. And he looked at me like, what do you mean progress? I got into a fight. I said, yes, but there was a moment. Thought arises, anger. You recognized it, you knew you should walk away, and then you still punched the dude. 6 weeks ago, there never would have been that thought that said, maybe I should walk away. So where I always like to say, you don't see, for me, this is just how I perceive this practice, I don't like the phrase, my meditation is getting better. Well, what does that mean? That you're better at sitting still and doing nothing? I'm better at doing nothing today than I was yesterday. And I don't actually think meditation is doing nothing. I mean, meditation is a training of the mind. But for the average lay person that everybody here is, right, we're sitting down because when we sit still, we're not physically harming anything. When we sit silently, we're not speaking any harm. And when we sit still and we do a meditation practice, our racing mind, you know what we're not doing with that racing mind? Anything that could cause harm. So I don't look at meditation as meditation getting better. Where you see progress with this practice, and I hate the word progress too, but where you begin to see progress so we can relate to that isn't in here, it's out there. It's when you start to catch your thoughts and you don't act on every single one of them. That's when your life changes. And people mistake that sometimes, especially if you're brand new to meditation. You think, okay, well, if I do this for 6 weeks, then everything's going to get better. Not necessarily the case. Things potentially could get worse because you become aware of what's going on and you're not running from it. Right? If you're dealing with anxiety, which a lot of people in this room are, anxiety comes from an awareness of all the chaos in our lives. We don't know what to do with it, so we freak out. And then we run for something to feel better. This practice is recognizing the emotions of anxiety and sitting with it. And know that just as everything else, it will pass. Good moments turn into bad moments turn into good moments. And our entire life is just a cycle of these moments occurring one after another. So it's not killing the emotions. It's not stopping the thoughts. It's learning to be with them, right? I got to check with Bob because he gave me a great metaphor the other day about ocean waves. There's a lot of Buddhist metaphors around waves and ocean and things like that. But he was talking about, the mind is like getting on the wave and just not allowing it to crash on you, but being okay riding it out. So when you have the anxiety, when you have the stress, when you have the anger, recognize it and be with it, and it'll settle. But if we fight it, sometimes it gets worse.
when you say deal with it, what do you mean?
Sit with it. Sit and breathe.
Panic?
Huh? Sit and panic? What's your alternative? Like literally. You could sit and panic or what? True. That or what is, there's endless options. When we feel panic, do the options that we choose to take, are any of them typically beneficial? No, I mean, when we're really angry, it could be any emotion. When we're really angry and we act on that anger, is there ever a good outcome? Not usually, unless we got lucky, right? So when I say deal with it, what I mean is sit with it. Understand, and I'll kind of wrap up with this thought, the teaching of impermanence. Everything in our lives comes together for a period of time and ceases to exist. Same with the emotion of anxiety. Emotion rises, we start to panic, just stop. Just sit and take some deep breaths. Whatever, I spent, I guess, probably 10, 12 years now working with combat vets coming back, dealing with tremendous trauma, PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, anxiety beyond, right? And many people in this room are dealing with things like that. And this is not a quick fix. This is not meditation will end your anxiety. What this practice, meditation as well as looking at what the Buddha taught, allows you to learn how to do is to, as I say, deal with it, be with it, bear witness to it, sit with it. You've been in a good mood before, right? Does that last forever? I should be asking her. You've been in a bad mood. You've been in a bad mood before, right? Does that last? Does that last longer? Yeah. So anxiety is the same thing. This is anxiety. This sucks. This is my chest feeling tight. This is my heart racing. This is my palms sweating. This is my feeling like everything is crashing on me. I'm going to sit. I'm going to feel my feet on the ground. I'm going to breathe. And I'm just going to be with it. And know, this is a big part, know that it will pass. But when we're in those moments, we think they're forever. Right? So that's where, again, I kind of wrapping up with my thought earlier, the meditation is helpful. But when you look at what the Buddha was actually teaching about how to be with things as they are, that's going to be as much, if not more, beneficial for dealing with anxiety than anything else. Meditation is like taking Advil that gets rid of a headache. We get a headache every day, we take Advil every day. Why not look at the reason the headache is arising? And a lot of that has to come with, it comes with the actions we take and how we live our lives. So, on that, I'll close. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Maddie during her time of suffering and to Shabazz during his suffering as well. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements, and it is a pretty rad bell, I got to give you that. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened this temple 12 years ago, initially downtown, to introduce Buddhist practice to local folks. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms for those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on, different people leading different Buddhist practices. Thursday, 5 o'clock, we do, I think, the best thing around here. It's a food redistribution program. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, typically veggies on sandwiches, and we feed a couple hundred people who sleep on the streets. So it's a beautiful practice. Anytime you think your life sucks, make sandwiches and feed some people sleeping on a sidewalk every night, and tends to put things into perspective and remind us how fortunate and privileged and lucky most of us really are. couple things out of the ordinary. First, well, it's every month, but next Saturday, first Saturday of the month, we do a day of silence. It's actually a half day. It's 4 hours from 8 to noon. If 20 minutes of silence is complete torture for you, I strongly recommend 4 hours. It's phenomenal. Most people I've known have lived through it. It's about 25-minute meditation practices. It just repeats from 8 to noon. So we still have our normal 11 o'clock here. It starts out up here and it finishes downstairs in the meditation hall down there. So that's the first Saturday of every month. It's a beautiful practice. When you sit for 4 hours, it also then makes 20 minutes a little more pleasant, a little more enjoyable, and a little simpler. Speaker-wise, I don't think we have anything out of the ordinary. Every Friday nights we're doing movies again. Today at 12:30 we're having our second planning meeting for the food redistribution program. We started about 9-10 years ago. We were restructuring it a little bit, which started last week, which was beautiful. But still every Thursday 5 o'clock we're feeding people. But we moved away from peanut butter and jelly, and now we're just making sandwiches for the most part. But with vegetables and passing out fruits and things like that. So it's off to a really great start. Last week was really beautiful, so thanks to everybody who helps with that. Other than that, Mondays and Thursdays are still on hold for about 9 weeks while we finish the Dharma Bum Life program, which will run another 9 weeks, as I just said. So thanks all for being here. Think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's the essence of this practice. And now you know everything you ever needed to know about Buddhism.